Hello, Steve Davis here. Welcome to episode 437 of the Adelaide Show podcast. We have an interesting episode. We're going to have a lovely indulgent tasting of a South Australian whiskey that has just swept the board with awards in New York. It's from 23rd Street, and Paul Barnett, the head distiller, is going to be joining me for a sip and a discussion about all things whiskey, from peat to barley to oak to South Australia and to some of his other favourites. The main course is Mark Rowland. He's a co-founder of the Adelaide Climate Action Week, which is still underway at the time this episode goes out. Runs until Sunday the 2nd of August 2026. They had a fantastic event earlier this week called the Great AI Climate Debate. And AI, of course, close to many of our hearts, with uneasiness because it promises much, but there is a toll that is paid by the climate and by society for its usage. How bad is that toll? Are there ways of lightening that toll? Mark is going to give us a deep rundown on the nuances, the pros and cons within that debate, and leave us with some actionable things that we can do to lessen our footprint. And then we're going to finish with a song by Steve Davis and the Virtuosos, which of course is my handwritten lyrics, and they're brought to life with the help of my virtual session band. And it's called Higher Legacy, and it's my reflection on a couple of Adelaide City Council gardeners who have together put more than 100 years of service towards maintaining the civic inheritance, as Stuart Sweeney calls it, of our parklands and our squares, things that are being ridden over roughshod by the government at the moment as it chases some thrills and dollars, and also threatens to lay heaps of concrete down and rip trees up, which you cannot get back easily. Once they're gone, it's easier to slice another piece of the cake. So I've got a song that reflects on the work of those two gentlemen, but also others before us who have laid down building blocks for this state that we can take for granted and erode, or honour and build upon. Hope you enjoy it, perhaps with a glass of whiskey in your hand from South Australia.
Wave on waves since the gun of bedroom. Adelaide, Adelaide, hoo. Landed here and made it their home. Adelaide, Adelaide, hoo. 10-pound bombs to the refugees. Adelaide, Adelaide, hoo. Brings it down and soon to knees. Adelaide, Adelaide, hoo. Oh, little Adelaide, oh, Adelaide, hoo. Oh, little Adelaide, hoo.
In the spirit of reconciliation, the Adelaide Show podcast acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout South Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today.
Adelaide, Adelaide, Adelaide.
For the South Australian Drink of the Week, I'm going to start with a pop quiz for Adelaide and South Australia. Name something from our state that just outscored Glenmorangie, Highland Park and a 31-year-old Crown Royal at a third of the price. And I'm not talking about any sort of bizarre football teams. I'm talking whiskey. And Renmark's own 23rd Street Distillery has just taken out Australian Distillery of the Year at the New York International Spirits Competition, with their single malt scoring 96 points. That's the highest whiskey score in the entire competition against entries from 39 different countries. It retails around, 100 and a bit, $108 thereabouts. Head distiller Paul Burnett is returning to the Adelaide Show again to explain how this distillery on the Murray, using barley from KI is quietly rewriting what the world thinks Australian whiskey can do. Paul, welcome back.
Great to be back. Thrilled. Great to have a whiskey on a Friday and toast our success to our single malt.
There is so much I want to just tuck under the covers and ask you about. That actually sounded wrong, didn't it, Paul? There's so much I want to get stuck into in our conversation. And I want to start with this. Your trophy cabinet is growing just a little bit. Australian Distillery of the Year, single malt, double gold, highest score. When those scores came in, tell me, what was the reaction? Are you jaded by this success yet, or did it hit you for a six?
No, you're always thrilled. The first thing you think is, right, all of the effort has paid off. We only talk about two things, the distilling team, and it's a very small team, quality and safety. That's all we talk about. So it's really easy to control our culture when we've only got two focuses.
Yeah.
We want to do everything slowly, everything right, everything in a team environment. So when we do our cuts, we're tasting as the three distillers. We've got a winemaker in our team as well. We're always tasting, debating. But I guess you think straight away, it's great to be acknowledged. We believe it's a great product. So the judges liked it. It's great to be placed alongside, those guys that you mentioned. Glenmorangie, or I said it wrong, I expect.
However we say it.
We think that's a wonderful whiskey. We like Abalur. We're very low level peat. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's something that the judges really liked. We use that low level peat as a complexing agent. We've got lots of peated whiskey, but the actual blend, it's about half 1% peat, really.
Gee, now...
And I think maybe that's what separates us is low-level peat, really bright whiskey, high-level malt, and it's our finishing that I believe what separates us from others is we've got this capacity to finish in such a huge myriad of different oaks, different casks, like, things that have been had tawny in them, muscat, tokay. Yeah. That's what separates us, I believe, and use of new oak.
I want to come back to all those little points bit by bit. I probably should get some on my palate first. I haven't poured mine yet, so bear with me. I have got a bottle of your Australian single malt whiskey, and just like yours, mine has some of it missing because last night I had a tasting with Alexis Catley, who was my go-to spirits and cocktail man, and in particular, I wanted to try a whiskey sour and what's the other one? The old something?
Oh, the old fashioned.
The old fashioned. I wanted to try them because in the tasting notes that 23rd put out, they did say this whiskey's good with that. But I need to confess, I'm not a big cocktail fan, and I didn't enjoy either of those much because when I had the whiskey neat, I was in my happy place. The sour was overwhelming. And what's the other one? The
old fashioned or the sidecar or
that was more subtle. The whiskey was definitely prominent, but then I just wanted the whiskey. So I don't know if I'm talking out of school by saying that, but
no, I totally agree with you. I used to laugh at people that had cocktails and gin and tonics, and I do like them, but Shani, our restaurant venue manager, made up for myself and Chris. An old-fashioned and a sour, and we both thought they're just so nice, and you're slurpable and drinkable, but basically you're like, okay, this is great, but when am I going to have a whiskey? When am I having it? And I have it with a tiny bit of water. I don't have it on ice.
Yep.
Because you do wash all those flavours out. Cocktails are great, and they're fun and they're sessionable, and it's a good way to start the night. But yeah, as soon as you want intensity, flavour, power, you go back to having whiskey by itself.
Now, I have just put a little teak pipette's worth of water in mine. So thank you for assuaging my guilt on that. Alexis did say as I was leaving, he said, you know what, this was nice, but I'm never, in quotes, wasting this whiskey in cocktails before. The cocktails, they're for the low shelf stuff. So there you go. I'll pass that on as a nice compliment. If you remember from our previous visits, before we taste, we need to toast our late patron, Queen Adelaide. So to the Queen.
To the Queen.
All right, I just want to have another sip to remind me what I tasted last night. And I have a question, because I've been drinking your Australian single malt for a couple of years now. It seems even more grown up now than when I first had it. Has it changed, or has my palate adapted to it?
It's certainly changed. So the oldest, it's normally about 6 different types of finishing of the same whiskey that gets made.
Okay.
Ultimately, not to divulge too much, like first fill bourbon barrels, new American oak, new French oak, some old red wine barrels, some very old tawny that have had Shiraz, Grenache, Mataro in them, up to 30-year-old, and some very old Topake barrels. Some 1994 Topake has come out, or Tokay, because you can't say Tokay anymore, or Muscadel, let's say that.
Can I say for the record, because Alexis, a long-time listener as well, knows that I mention the fact that I lived in Hungary almost every episode, and I had a lot of Tokay when I was there. I think that's the home of it, or one of the homes of it.
Yeah, they say Tokai, I think.
Yes.
Not that my Magyar is very good. I'm not fluent in Magyar.
Yes.
I can't even say it properly. Hungarian.
Yes, I used to. But what I'm getting now on it is there's a beautiful heat across the tongue. It's the full package. It doesn't miss anything. It fills the palate completely, and that heat is not overbearing, but it shows we're here, we're serious, and then it rises, a bit like those cartoons you see of a loaf of bread or cake out of the oven, the old cartoons, or apple pie, and there's that steam wafting off the top. It just, when you haven't smothered it with orange and lemon and everything, it just creates its magic ecosystem in your mouth.
I just realised I didn't answer your question either. You are right. It does change.
Mm-hmm.
I've only put together 3 single malts in my nearly 4 years, because we do sort of small productions. But each time, those 6 different oak finishings, that percentage has changed.
Okay.
I remember being so steadfast and thinking, oh, the new French barrel, that's going to be the base going forward. It's going to be 60, 70, 80%. That has reduced each blend down to about 10, 15%. And the finishing in the Muscadel barrel has become far more prominent. The bourbon finish is part of the style across all of our whiskies.
Yep.
But yeah, there is going to be subtle changes. And so for the collector to get 2 or 3 each release, I think it's really clever, because then you can go back and we always taste the previous production because we want a little bit of continuity and consistency, but we're also prepared to, at that taste approval stage, have tiny differences between those releases.
And
we'd like to do 2 a year. Like we'd like to have one released for Father's Day,
yep,
and then one for Christmas. That's sort of ideal.
Now, when it comes to peat, because part of me is I'm the smoky / peaty whiskey guy. Lefroy is one of my favourite go-tos, etc. And for a while there, when money was tight, there was a Smokehead, or there was some other whiskey that was really low price, and they just poured the smoke in it. And that's when I discovered you can go too far. And I'm gradually learning how to release. I cling on to peat and smoke like I'm on the edge of the Titanic and it's the last lifeboat. But I'm gradually releasing that. And I think might be some sophistication in the way you do it. But how do you achieve peat? Because doesn't that mean it has to be filtered through blocks of peat? or what's the story there for a novice who just loves his whiskey?
Well, so most of the peat, I think, in the world is from Scotland, and it's evolved through that degradation of vegetation in the soil, I believe. I'm not an expert, and you can get Australian peat. I reckon it's south of Coonawarra is a really good spot.
Oh, wow.
But you need to introduce that smoke to your barley prior to the fermentation.
Right.
Prior to the creation of the wash. So, we have one particular base of whiskey. It's a 2019 whiskey, very, very high level peat. And for us, it's probably about 18% peat in that particular whiskey. And then, like I said, it's so sparingly used we're only doing like 1,000 litre productions.
Yep.
And you should talk in lows, I guess, instead of litres, but I still like litres.
Thank you.
We're really doing the blend, and then we're putting into that 1,000, 4 or 5 litres or 3 litres of that peaty whiskey.
I see.
That's enough for us. But like you referenced, I used to love Ardbeg.
Oh, yes, that's another one.
Floyd's always, if we have our Christmas drinks and celebrate the year, the one of the most experienced distillers we have here, he loves Lefroy. That's his favourite. But I started out with Ardbeg and Lefroy, and I think Talisker.
Oh, yeah, Talisker, yes.
And they're fantastic whiskies. But now when I have a choice, I tried a really good Irish whiskey the other day, and it was low level peat, and I really enjoyed it.
Just before we leave Ireland and Scotland behind, because over there they've got the rule that their whiskey needs to be matured for 3 years in their respective countries. Otherwise, you can't say they are whiskey from that place. We don't have that here in Australia, as far as I'm aware, in our regulations.
But 2 years.
Is it 2 years, is it?
I'm pretty sure. I am sure, because that's what we work on. For rum, whiskey, brandy,
Yep.
must be in oak for 2 years.
Now, this one, though, unless I misread it, there's 3 years of maturation that's gone into this Australian single malt, is there not? When you didn't, you didn't have to.
When we say like it's a 3-year-old, with whiskey, you can't do your average age. Like I was a fortified winemaker by trade, where you blend the 10-year-old and the 15, and you say, its average age is 12. If you blend a 3-year-old whiskey and a 1-year-old whiskey, you just got 1-year-old whiskey.
Gotcha.
But you can't. So the minimum age is a 3-year-old. It's got some 5-year-old whiskey in it too. But the blend, you've got to say it's a 3-year-old, because that's the youngest component in it.
And talk me through the Kangaroo Island barley. What does that bring to the table that maybe barley from somewhere else doesn't?
Kangaroo Island, as a natural resource of farming, it just has amazing soil, amazing conditions, so it still gets a beautiful summer. It gets far more rain than we get in the Riverland. I don't know the exact, but I reckon it might get 3 times the rain of the Riverland, even though it's been a wet year here.
Yep.
So you've got really good soil, you've got lots of rain, and you've got lots of sunshine. So you've got everything you need to create an amazing raw material of barley. And the transport from there to here, you're not looking at big distances. It's not a huge effort. It's easy for me to say that because I'm not a farmer or a truck driver.
Yes.
But getting those raw materials into a wash it can be done fresh. So, you're using the best possible material. There's very good South Australian mainland, and there's very good Queensland barley. But we've ascertained that for high quality consistency, that Kangaroo Island is a fantastic option.
Well, it really does stamp the South Australian DNA into it, doesn't it? The other thing I wanted to ask, and by the way, that the touch on muscat that it's had there, with all the influences in this, it's like seeing an abstract art exhibition of muscat. Like it's in the mix, like haunting, like a ghost. but I couldn't name it if I had to name it straight away. There's like this lovely symphony of just this beautiful array of different flavours and influences from the different pre-soaked barrels that just lends to a pleasantry. I mean, this is not my question. That was just, it hit my palate as I was talking there, Paul. My question's about the oak. We hear French oak, we hear American oak talked about a lot. Is there much Australian oak in use? So I've got two questions, one about that, and the second one is, when you bring over oak from these other countries, do they come as whole barrels, or are they dismantled and reassembled when they're here?
I mean, you can import barrels from France and America, and we have a limited budget for brand new.
Yep.
And I don't want to digress to brandy too much, but I mean, brandy was the reason why I wanted to work here first and foremost.
Oh.
So French oak for brandy. I mean, we get American oak, but most of it, to answer your question, is made. There's a couple of coopers that we use, and they'll assemble them here. Sometimes they'll come as those staves, individual staves, and watching the coopers produce that's a noble art.
It
It's
is.
such craftsmanship, and there's a fair bit of variety in those. So we use hogsheads, these barrels that are around 280 to 320. There's a lot of variance in those, whereas bourbon barrels, they're made very, very similar. There's so much control on the bourbon barrel. They all hold about 191 litres. There isn't variation amongst those. They're all charred a similar way.
Yep.
So I would say there's a lot more craftsmanship in the French and American hogshead, and there's a bit more production in the bourbon barrel. And the thickness is different. The effects of storing in it are different. French oak, for me, a lot greater tannin and a higher quality of tannin. American oak, more vanilla, more obvious aromas early on.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, these projects are so much fun. Each time we go back at them, they are changing. I just realised then I do see those raisin and fruitcake finishes of that complex muscadel. But I see a bit of citrus today. I see that sort of real citrus complex coming through too.
Yeah. For me, it's a bit more pithy at the citrus end than the fruit. But this is my lament. I mean, I love whiskey. I know what I enjoy. If you put a wine in front of me, I could give you 7,000 hours of inspired description. I don't have the vocabulary with whiskey to name it. I just know when it sits properly and I'm drinking something that's been well crafted. Can you talk us through what else you're getting on your palate, just to help me? Because I'm a babe in the woods in putting words around what I'm...
I suffer the same fate when I drink spirits sometimes because they're so powerful and mouth coating that sometimes you really struggle to say, oh, I think there's cinnamon spice there, or I get these clean corn characteristics and stuff like that. But for me, I guess what I see in our whiskey and what we target as a team is brightness. We want very bright, sweet oils in terms of our distillation. So put it simply, the distillation is heads, hearts, and tails. So removing the heads, undesirable, varnishy, poisonous alcohols. The hearts is what's going to go to barrel for 2 years or longer, and the tails are the things that are a bit more grassy, chewy. Once again, they're not desirable aromas or flavors. So I see brightness. I see that the purest of hearts. That's what we're targeting. I see lovely sweet oils. I see lovely bright malt. I hardly see any peat. And we're not looking for it.
Funny you mentioned that. Just as I'm exhaling, as you said, you can't. I got a sense of that, but I interrupted you. Sorry, it just coincided with what you were saying. So you're not getting a lot of peat. We're not getting a lot, but I got some of that because at first I was thinking it's almost like there's cut grass or cut hay or something here, and then no, it was verging towards that soft peatiness, just that earthy, natural essence that brings.
It's amazing you say that, cut grass, because I say cut grass, but my boss, when we're tasting, he'll say, no, they're the congeners. They're all the beautiful things that are coming from the esterification of the ferment, the distillation, the interaction with the copper. You're getting these congeners. Coincidentally, the congeners are the ones that give you the hangovers too.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Anything that's high in congeners, like brandy, whiskey, rum.
Yep.
Unlike vodka, very low in congeners.
Yep.
But these congenerics, I always see, it's got that sort of grassy, lifted sort of barley notes and grainy notes. And yeah, my boss would say, well, that's the congenerics. That's what we're wanting.
There you go. And for some reason, I'm getting, again, not strong, but I want to say there's a combination of some cardamom and some nutmeg. But again, I'm not shoving it right at my nose. It's on the side of the kitchen cupboard where I'm doing some cooking, and there's just a little bit of that when the room is still.
My notes the other day, I had sort of allspice, baking spice. Yep.
I was heading there, but it didn't have that. Those spices are a bit more aggressive. Is not the right word. Active. These were more relaxed.
Well, and the temperature at what you're enjoying it at, like, so that's why I'm not really a prude for many things. Like, nice ice cream.
Yep.
Nice steak, nice spirit. Everything else I'm happy to have low level. And good water. If you're going to use, if you've got really nice rainwater, great, but don't use inferior water. Don't use anything with chemicals in it.
Yep.
The temperature at what you taste is going to affect the aromas. It's going to affect your palate, how you're feeling. If you've had a big night on the whiskey, the next morning when you do your tasting notes, they're probably going to be quite critical because you're not feeling at your best.
Yeah.
But I like to drink it room temperature, even make sure the water's room temperature. I get some of those real honeyed fruits and sometimes even a bit of fig when I look at whiskey. And then you think, am I looking at it wrong? But as you're tasting it, it's going to dovetail in your palate as well.
I've been deliberately heating it in my hand as you've been talking, and some of those latter things you just mentioned, the honey in particular, the fig, they're there. They're there, but they weren't there before. I'm actually heating to give them permission to put them as, they're like a peacock that's too cold and its tail is all shrunken, and I want its fan to be bigger.
We really want oak to be part of our style. So that finishing in different oaks and that complexity of oak tannin, oak aroma, oak flavour, good structure of oak. But we want it to frame the whiskey. We don't want it to dominate. So, the same way I move away from really peaty whiskies, I'm going to move away from very light oak or over oaked. It has to be in balance. So balance, to answer your question, balance is what we're targeting very much.
And my last comment here is the Tokay, that's where it's landed. I've gone around the game board and I've come back and I haven't landed on Mayfair. I've landed on Tokay. That's where I've landed because they have a star system in Hungary from 1 to 5, and that's talking about really the quality in particular. And this is a really clean, beautiful, dry expression of not 100% dry, but not overly sweet. It's in that middle spot. It's the Goldilocks Tokay.
I can't remember was it Putillons or something like that? There was a term for the level of sweetness in those Tokays.
Yes, there is. But I had what they called Konyanyov, which is kitchen language. That's as far as I got. So,
I'm sure I just completely ruined any chance I've got of any exchange with Hungary. But
I'll go with you as a chaperone when you do. And my last question, Paul, because I am about to hit into your weekend. How do you recommend? Because this is one of the 3 food groups that you pay attention to closely. How do we get the most? If we're going to buy a bottle of your Australian single malt whiskey, what will give it the best chance of showing off like a showgirl?
Nice glass. So, I mean, these are beautiful glasses because you're giving it every chance to for the aromas to come up. And
these are these called tulip glasses?
I don't know. I'm so naive. Like, the covers, the watch glasses, when I first started here, someone said, can you order some watch glasses? And I said, sure. What are they?
For
A
the
good
people
glass?
for people listening who can't see, these are the glass with a small base. It's got a little bulbous bottom, and then it thins itself towards the top. Yep, go on.
Yeah, a good glass, and the glass has to be, free from any debris or anything like that. So I rinse it with water.
Mhm.
Then you've got to work out, as you have worked out, how you want to drink your whiskey. Do you want to dilute it slightly? Let's say they're at 40. Most whiskies are about 40.
Yep.
I've worked out that I like about 35.
Okay.
Then, when we did a big study tour of Tasmania when we first started, and they were wonderful. All the distillers were so kind with advice and support. But some of them they were so much tougher than me. They were drinking at 50, 55. Whereas I just found I couldn't pinpoint the sweet oils. I couldn't pinpoint the distillation. I couldn't ascertain the oak. So I've worked out 35. I think, you don't want to be freezing cold, even though the whiskey will warm you up. A nice 20 degrees. And then it's not that hard to be patient and warm it up in your hands, but you don't want it too hot.
No.
And then I don't like drinking whiskey by itself. I like whiskey with chocolate. I like whiskey with nuts. I think it's a great food beverage.
See, chocolate to me would be a bridge too far, but that's just me. I could see nuts actually working here very well because the taste profiles are in a similar register. It's like having a beautiful, woodwind section or a brass section. They all belong together.
Yeah.
Chocolate, though, is, your timpani. It's your drum. It's a different flavour to me. But
yeah, I don't think the judges, when they were tasting this, had chocolate at the same time. So, but as I was with my mate last night and we were doing some thorough research on it, and we were enjoying double desserts. So we were having ice cream and chocolate and things like that. But I certainly think you need to drink whiskey with friends and you need to be discussing it.
Yeah.
And you need to decide whether you like the oak or not. I love oak. I love oaky Chardonnays. I love oak in Shiraz and Cabernet. But we do a lot of debate about, what sort of grain, what sort of yeast are we going to use for our wash, how are we going to do our cuts. But the greatest amount of debate is how it's going to be finished. Once it's already 3 years old, how are we going to finish it for another 6-9 months before we bottle it? In what type of oak to give us what finish we want? And then hopefully people are going to say, this is a very well put together whiskey. It's got great balance. It's got lovely oak. And it makes them try other whiskies and, find exactly what spirits they like. And maybe they might have a sour, maybe. But hopefully they go back to neat and, drinking it between 35 and 40%.
Not if they listen to Adelaide Show. They're banned. But no, I hear what you're saying. Paul, thank you again for making some time to have a chat about this. I really do say, because there are some people who still poo-poo Australian whiskey. It's not purist for them. There are less and less of them, I will say. This is like this win that you've just had in New York, to me, is like the coming of age party for 23rd Street and your Australian single malt. Seriously, this is a darn good whiskey. This is the whiskey where you don't think you're dropping down a notch or compromising by not having something from Scotland or Ireland. This is there. And the judges in New York got it. I get it, and I can be a bit of a curmudgeon. And hats off to you and all the hard work, especially what you did with your mate last night, going above and beyond, because I'm sure they weren't billable hours. It's the extra mile that you go.
Well, we're so proud, and thank you so much. It was so good to talk again. Would love to have you here for a tour, and I can show you the whole process of what we do here. We might even have to have a brandy or a gin, coupled with the whiskey tasting.
I think we need to do that. Just lock up the ice cream and the chocolate, but your nuts are welcome.
Happy to be wrong.
I'm not sure that sounded right, Paul, but anyway, thank you very much for being part of the Adelaide Show again. There's only one thing left for me to say, and that is, proudly, the 23rd Street Australian single malt whisky is the South Australian drink of the week. Cheers, Paul.
Cheers.
I'm John Schumann, a singer-songwriter, and I live in Adelaide for reasons which escape me. You are listening to The Adelaide Show, and my advice is to get a life.
Climate experts and different answers on whether AI helps or hurts the planet. That was literally the premise of a debate held in Adelaide earlier this week. Two teams went head-to-head, one side calling AI a carbon glutton, pointing at data centres now guzzling enough power to rival mid-sized nations. The other side, the silicon saviours, arguing AI is the thing that finally lets us squeeze more renewables onto the grid we've already got. Well, my guest today helped bring that debate to life. Mark Rowland is co-founder of Adelaide Climate Action Week. He spent his career getting government, industry and community to actually talk to each other about climate. And if you've ever been in one of those rooms, I mean, that's kind of a miracle. And just before I bring Mark in, I will declare my hand early because I'll do that anyway, as you know. I use AI most days for work. For work, I actually value. I've got solar and a battery on my house and office. I drive an EV. I've built a fair bit of my life around trying to do the right thing technologically. And the more I learn about what sits behind some of that, the less smug I get to feel about it. So I've promised Mark no tabloid headlines today. We're going to get into the nuance. And if I come out looking like I'm part of the problem, so be it. Mark Rowland, welcome to the Adelaide Show.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
I don't know where this is going to end, but I'm here for the ride and I'm all ears. So now you ran an Oxford-style debate on this rather than a panel where everyone sort of sits around and politely agrees. Why did the great AI climate debate need an actual contest with winners and losers rather than that more nuanced discussion format?
Well, I think humans are innately competitive, and I think it just taps into sort of our inner urges. When you can say to someone, there's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser, there's going to be a competition, our ears prick up, we get more interested. And then when people realize they have to offer an opinion on something, they would tend to listen more and not necessarily just be looking at their phone with the people talking on the panel in the background. So we actually led the debate we had 4 arguments from each of the debaters. They both went head to head, and then we actually let the audience debate it themselves. Then we had a vote, which of the arguments won round 1, which won round 2, round 3, round 4, etc. And then we had a vote prior to the debate even happening of where people sat. Did they sit on the side of AI in context of climate is going to be bad? So that was the carbon glutton team. Or is AI going to be good for climate? And that was the silicon saviours, as you said. So we had a vote at the very start of the debate, and we had another official vote at the end of the debate just to see where people had shifted. And there was a shift, and it was awesome to see.
That's what I wanted to find out next before we dive into some of the arguments. How did the room land, but also how did the room travel as the debate went along?
Well, the cool thing was, as far as there was 24% of the people in the debate undecided at the start.
Okay.
At the end, that was single digits.
All right.
So if nothing else, the debate helped people take a position. So that was good. The winning team was the same before and after. But after, the margin of difference between the two teams was greater. So the carbon glutton was the predominant vote. So it was 56% of the vote at the start, and it was over 70% at the end of people believing that AI will actually be a negative for climate. Now, the interesting thing when I was talking to people afterwards about what led to their vote, the difference was how far into the future do you look when you make that decision? And most people were looking in more the short term, like over the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be good or is it going to be bad? And the predominant feeling there was definitely bad, hence over 70% by the end. But then if I then said to them, well, what do you think 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years from now? Then it started to shift, where they were thinking, oh, no, actually by then it's probably going to be much better. So it was interesting. It was more like the time horizon that people would take that led to that decision.
It's like they were pondering that it's jumped out of the gates fast, but we'll gradually get our heads around it and tame the beast. That seems to be what you're intimating there.
Yeah, and I think there's also the feeling of a lot of waste because we are doing it too quickly without maybe the necessary guardrails. We're allowing data centers to proliferate when we haven't yet fixed the grid, and the majority of electricity on our planet is currently driven by fossil fuels. So if you grow more data centers around the world, it's just going to increase the amount of energy that's needed, and that's going to be fossil fuels. So we're going to have more emissions going out. Plus, the data centers themselves are buildings, and they require building materials, and they require steel, and they require concrete. Both of those are very carbon-intensive materials. So that's about 14% of the world's emissions are in steel and concrete. And then there's lots of other rare mineral issues when it comes to the servers, and then the land, they're chopping down trees to build data centers. So there was I think a lot of angst about the initial sort of impact of building lots and lots of data centers.
I will say they chop down trees for lots of reasons, but that's a different debate. I wanted let's start with the carbon glutton case, because I really want to get my head around that. That's where the bulk of our audience sat, because it is one of the scariest headline numbers. I mean, they're using electricity in quantities that rival mid-sized nations, and when you take away the alarm and you think it through, I do have a question of nuance though. How much of that usage is actually AI specific versus data centers in general? Because you've got cloud storage, there's streaming, all that stuff we were doing before AI turned up on the scene.
Yeah, and another point just to make as well is in terms of the future growth of energy requirement, there are other things that way more impact than data centers.
Oh.
Air conditioning is expected to grow more than the energy needs of data centers. Charging EVs is expected to grow more than data centers. Use of industry as we switch from using coal for things and using natural gas for things and actually electrifying, the energy needs of that also is going to be a lot more than just data centers. But the data center itself, just answer the question.
Before you come to that answer, please don't lose your track. You just mentioned something about the charging of EVs, and there's one observation I want to share because I'm relatively new to having an EV. We're lucky enough to have a nice big battery on our home and lots of solar capture, but one thing it's taught me is I now pay more attention to the weather, in particular sunlight. And so I need to be strategic in when I drain some of our battery into my car, knowing that, look, if it all goes to hell in a handbasket, I'm just going to have to feed it off the mains. Luckily, I've only had to do that once or twice. It's actually taught me, as a city dweller, to actually be more like a farmer and watching the weather. There must be some good thing that comes from that raised awareness of the ecosystem within which we live. Have you got any thoughts or reflections on that? Because that caught me by surprise.
Good. Well, firstly, you and I are very privileged that we have that resource. We have solar and we have batteries. That's not the case for a lot of people. I switched to wholesale electricity when I put my first battery on the side of the house. So I use amber. And because of that, I actually paid a wholesale rate for electricity. I don't know if you've done the same.
Not yet, no.
So it's very handy to do. You can actually, that, and I got a smart meter on my house, so I could actually see the energy being pulled down from any device in my house. So that was really cool to gamify that. What I realized just with using the wholesale price is during the day, regardless of whether it's sunny or not, the cost of electricity drops to almost nothing. because somewhere in Australia it's sunny, it's windy, and because of all the solar during the day, it actually is it's very green. The grid is very green. It's only in the evenings when the sun goes down and we haven't got enough battery storage across the country that then it becomes dirty electricity at that point. But during the day, it's pretty. Anyone can pretty much plug in their EV and have a very green grid and not be impacting climate change in that respect. But I was the same when I got my solar, when I got my battery, I bought my EV. Yes, I was initially paying more attention to the sun outside and thinking, oh, I better charge my car now because it's sunny. But then I realized if I outstrip what my ability to actually generate energy from my solar panels, which I will because my EV is very, very hungry when it comes to, and it's much bigger than my battery. It didn't really matter because the grid was green anyway.
Fascinating. I wonder how long this sensitivity will last. I hope it does last because I want to be more attuned to the land we live in.
Indeed.
But we'll see. Now, back to the question. Sorry, I will try not to take us off down rabbit holes.
Oh, no worries.
So this thing about the data centers.
You're asking about the AI.
AI versus all the other stuff they do.
Indeed. Yeah, so prior to the debates, we actually had some context setting. So I shared some information with everybody. So there's been some amazing reports by the International Energy Agency, the IEA. Google has just released some amazing reports as well in their latest sustainability report. So we shared some of that information. So interestingly enough, when it comes to, if we just look at the, say, 2020 through to today, data centers' energy needs was growing by, roughly about sort of 10% per year. And it was, when they look at the data center, the energy needs of the data center, there's the cooling cost of the data center, the use of energy of the data center. There's other IT equipment usage within the data center. And then when it comes to the servers, they usually separate out the energy needs of conventional servers and then the energy needs of accelerated servers. It's the accelerated servers that AI needs.
Okay.
That's the most data hungry, energy hungry servers that we have. And that is the one that's expected to grow faster than anything else over the next sort of, 5 to 10 years. And that is purely AI. So you can actually strip, and if you go to the IEA, you can see beautifully colored graphs that show you the impact of AI use. So then it really becomes, okay, well, AI is with us. The energy use of AI is with us. How do we make sure that we use it for good and not use it for bad? And that was what a lot of the debate was on, which was really interesting.
Wow. Okay. Well, look, now there's another thing that would have come up, and that's the Jevons paradox, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah.
That's the argument, and this problem probably gets under my skin the most. Every time AI gets cheaper and more efficient, we don't...
More people use it.
Yeah, we don't bank the savings. We just use it a lot more. And look, I'll put myself under the microscope here too. I use Claude on a pretty short leash, but I use it well trained to amplify my writing. Notebook LM, which is now Gemini notebook, for crunching lots of data to look for patterns. Gemini for some Google-specific tutorials, image creation as needed. I even use a bit of Perplexity does my searching for me. And I even touch on Suno from time to time to take some of my lyrics and get a draft song crafted. So in fact, the Adelaide show even has an app called the Spin Detector, which allows you to take inflammatory posts and get some context and get them de-angified so we can understand what's going on. And that's drawing from this as well. Am I in the school that's trying to use these things efficiently because I try to use them sparingly, or am I just part of this paradox in action?
Well, we're all part of the paradox in action, hence the paradox.
Yeah.
I mean, the good news is, from your perspective, the amount of AI that you are using is such a small percentage of the use that if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't really worry too much about it.
Okay.
There's lots of other use cases of industry, of people utilizing AI, which uses a heck of a lot more than you do. But obviously, if every single human uses it every single day for things that we didn't used to use it for, but now we just got lazy, and then yes, of course, we're gonna have a lot of waste. But for example, I referenced the Google sustainability report.
Yes.
So definitely there is a sense that, Google is reducing the amount of energy and carbon dioxide and water for every single prompt that is now being used. And they report that in their annual report. So, a couple of years ago, it was really big. Now it's actually, I think it's dropped like 60% in terms of the, I'm not sure exactly that. It's over 50% in terms of the efficiency. But at the same time, more people are now using it.
So are we talking about Gemini, which is Google's AI model, or we're talking about Google search? What sort of prompts?
No, so Gemini. Well, one of the stats that I referenced in the debate was if you look at a median Gemini text.
Okay. Yes.
Right. So you 0.24 watt hours of energy, 0.03 grams of CO2, and about 0.2 milliliters of water, which is the equivalent of your microwave in your house running for 1 second.
Okay. Right.
So if you use your microwave 20 minutes a day, which I think a lot of people probably would, from warming things up for breakfast, warming things up for lunch, warming things up for dinner, or even using your air fryer, you're using a lot more energy than you are on, how many prompts would you use, which only takes a very short amount of time.
That is helpful context.
So again, it's just interesting to look at that. But I think the thing that the Jevons paradox is saying is 4 years ago, you would never have used AI to do your Google search. No. Now you're probably not using traditional Google search at all. And now you're actually using AI.
That is true.
Now you're probably even talking to AI while you're driving in your car.
And because the results are better through Perplexity, I think I use it more. There you go. Yeah. I am the Jevons. Wow. Even
the pressure that we need to put on these big tech companies is for them to only use renewable energy, for them to, in their data centers, for them to only use recycled water in their data centers. There's a lot of people around the world now that are actually doing some good with data centers. I used to live in Las Vegas. There's a company in Las Vegas called Switch, which is one of the fastest growing data center companies in the US. The CEO of Switch has over 400 patents that he has now for efficient cooling systems. And in Las Vegas, water is one of the scarcest resources, as in most states around there. So he basically gets given an allocation of water for a data center, puts it in a reservoir that's sealed, uses that water through the data center, collects that water, cleans that water, deals with any of the waste products that come through the water in an environmentally conscious way, and then uses that water again and again and again. And it's pretty much a closed system. Not quite. He still needs to keep topping it up from time to time. But that's the sort of thing that we really need to enforce data centers around the world to use, not to use drinking water of humans, not to use water that could have gone into the agricultural sector that's now going to impact food security in certain places. And there's a horrific report that I read. I forget which country it was, but it was in Africa. The government approved a data center to go in, and they literally just turned off the water that went to a village. And it led to deaths in that village just because they turned it off. So, these are the things that are the horror stories. I'm sure they're the outliers, but they're the things that just people really gets me upset when I hear that. And then when you hear that data centers are just growing, proliferating without many guardrails, even in South Australia, the Act has just passed to essentially make it easier to build data centers. And I think the community, in terms of the social license, we're all sitting here going, I'm not quite sure about this because it's just happened so quickly. And, we haven't had the conversation. We haven't had all the discussions. We haven't had all the fact sharing. So now I think it's just normal human nature for us to start feeling a little bit nervous about it.
Especially in South Australia's case, because on one thing, we see a map, we see a river, we'll put something next to the river, there's lots of water, but those of us who've lived here our lives know that, well, yes, there is water there, but we're in the driest state and the driest continent, and we have to really be careful with what we do there, not just the quantity, but maintaining quality, etc.
Well, especially with the waste that comes from the data center.
Yeah, what is the waste? So if that
waste just goes... It's just it's chemical waste going through the water, going through the servers. if we just let people pump that straight out into the soil, and then it gets into the water table, and then it gets into the rivers, now we just created more pollution. So we need to be careful to make, again, I think it's just about putting those guardrails in.
Yeah.
I know some of the discussion in Australia is, if you want to build a data center, you have to have renewable energy where possible. We have a lot of ability to have relatively cheap electricity generation from wind and solar in our country. We're very lucky about that, especially South Australia. So there's really no reason for us not to say to a data center company, okay, if you want to build a data center here, we want you to create 2x, 3x the needs of the data center through generating renewable energy. And then that excess renewable energy goes into the community, and that actually helps. So, because otherwise, if we just allow the existing renewable energy to power the data centers, currently South Australia is heading towards 100%. Renewable energy, but if you suddenly have a proliferation of data centers and then industry starts to switch from natural gas to electricity, very quickly you won't be 100% because the demand has just gone up. But if we can match the demand going up with the delivery and the supply of renewable energy, then we can actually balance that out.
It's like a macro version of my little micro thing at home. If I'm going to charge my car.
Exactly.
Even today, I turned it off at a certain point to give the battery time to charge up again before nightfall. It's a balancing act. Wow.
We did have, I just wanted to point out, there was the day before we had the debate, there was an evening session. So a friend of mine from Chicago was on that call, Alina, and then we had Adrian from Barossa Green talking about putting in a data center in the Barossa. And I just wanted to share with you the plans for that. I mean, it's not happened yet, obviously, and they're raising the money, but it's got approval. The plans for that is that the data center will be powered by renewable energy. They're going to be putting solar across. There's a vineyard on the property. So the solar will be above the vines. Mm-hmm. There's some benefits to the actual vines of having some solar panels above it. It protects it from the harshest sunshine. It protects it from wind. It creates a microclimate underneath the solar panels, so there's more moisture in the soil. So there's a lot of benefits to the actual winery. They're going to be generating 2 or 3x the amount of energy that they need from the data center. So they're going to be giving energy back into the community. So that benefits the community. I think there's plans for a community battery as well. And then the heat that comes from the data center, they're going to utilize that heat to basically create water from the atmosphere. So there's going to be a condensation that's going to be happening. They're going to be collecting millions of liters of water, and they're going to then give that water to the data center will use some of it, but then they're going to give the rest of the water to the farmers and the wineries around them, which then means we'll not be drawing as much water from the Murray River. So if you plan these carefully, then you can actually generate some really epic systemic, community benefits. And what they're also talking about, because the head of the regional development area for Barossa was there as well, and he was saying that he's also now interested in, okay, well, if we do build these data centers in the Barossa, what additional industries could benefit from that to create jobs? There's not a lot of jobs created by a data center. No, it's servers and lights going on and off, and a couple of people just making sure it's okay. But Alina was saying that in Chicago and through Illinois and through the US, they have seen these places where data centers are now growing, actually having research bodies, research arms, or quantum computing, things that actually need access to very fast internet, being right next to the data center and essentially be able to plug into the data center, zero latency. So some advanced research facilities can come up. So you can create these peripheral industries like clusters around where enough data centers are. So whilst the data center itself doesn't create jobs, it does then actually attract. And I'm a huge believer in circularity. Yeah. So if you can take the byproduct of one company, which is the feedstock, into another company. So heat is obviously being generated by the data center, but there's lots of businesses that need heat. So instead of burning gas, coal, electricity to generate heat, if they can just take the heat from the data center and utilize it and store it and use it in their own manufacturing facility, then, hey, we've actually just now created lots of efficiency. So if you think broad enough, strategically enough, and plan, I can see there could be a lot of benefits. But if it's just a haphazard, let's put a data center here, let's put a data center there, without much thought, without much planning, then we might not get any of those benefits.
Intentionality is what you're talking about.
Yeah, bit of foresight. Yeah, bit of just, it's not, and it doesn't take a lot. Like, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So, I always want to do things quickly. But even as an entrepreneur, you still want to be strategic. You don't just want to, waste resources and do things that are silly. So it's having that consultation, I think, with people and going, okay, if we're going to build this here, what else could be the benefit? Who else could come in on this? And then it might help my investment decision, because I'm trying to raise money to build my data center. If I can then have a partnership with another company that wants to use my heat, I can then sell my heat to that company. That then makes the investment case for me building my data center better. So it's, if we just look at it from a return on investment perspective at a community level, you can see the potential there could be a lot of benefits.
Look out soon for Steve's Barossa sauna. Now that we've ventured on some of the positive ways of thinking about it, let's have a look at a couple of things from the grid optimizer side of the AI debate. Because there was talk about AI helping with load shifting and peak shaving to get more renewables into the grid without more poles and wires. Is that, to your knowledge, Mark, actually happening at scale anywhere, or is that still a promising sort of pilot idea?
No, I think it's definitely happening. Whether or not it's happening at scale, I don't know. But no, I mean, the complexity of having to try and manage the load, as our grid was not designed for solar, for wind. It was designed for coal and natural gas oil to generate electricity. I'm definitely not an expert in transmission lines and energy distribution, but I've spoken to enough people that have told me that it is a thing. We do need to either reinvest in how we're going to build these transmission lines in the future, or how to localize it within a community. But I know AEMO,
Yep.
I read a report from them where they said, AI could be really useful in actually helping get more renewables on the grid and moving things around and deciding how much to put in storage and not. Only because it's just complex data analysis that AI can do a heck of a lot faster than humans. It's not to say that humans couldn't do it. It's just AI can do it faster. And that's one of the things that I talk a lot about in my work, is this idea of hybrid intelligence, where we have human intelligence on one side, we have machine intelligence on the other side. If we make sure that humans are making the decisions and doing the things that humans are best suited to do, but then we allow machines to do the things that machines can do better than humans, and we don't get the two of those confused, then that's where hybrid intelligence comes in. So I think if we look at it from making those really quick split-second decisions on where things should be, a human is not the best at that. AI is much better at that. When it comes to empathy and reasoning and nuance and relationships, and humans are way better than machines at that.
Yep.
So I think I'm sure you in your AI use, you don't just solely rely on the AI to do things for you. You let it do things that might take you a bit of time, but then you still pass your own human sort of filter over it.
Yep.
So that would be an example of hybrid intelligence.
Ironically, I often use the analogy of a horse. I ride it, I steer it, but it can get me from A to B faster once I've put those things into place. It's ironic because it's going back to yesterday's
That's a good analogy.
Technology.
well, if you think, this is it from a human perspective. If you think of, we have horsepower.
Yes.
So it's a measure. So we went from horses with one horsepower, to then tractors, to then cars, to then
Correct.
EVs. There's a lot more horsepower, so we are more efficient.
Yeah. Now, a lot of the topics you talked about, I kind of felt like I understood them, but the Dunning-Kruger effect reminds me that there are some things when I say time value of carbon, I could probably fluff around a bit, but that discussion was about there are emissions from AI happening right now, but the climate benefits, or the other side, they're speculative. They arrive later, if at all. You're about climate action rather than climate hope. So how do we understand this concept of time value of carbon in relation to our AI usage?
Okay. So do you know how long carbon dioxide stays in the atmosphere for?
I'm guessing a long time or even forever.
Not forever, no, hundreds of years.
Okay.
So if we said, let's say it's 100 plus years that carbon stays in the atmosphere. Some of the other greenhouse gases more warming, but they stay in the atmosphere less, like methane, nitrous oxide. They're more warming, but they stay in the atmosphere. So carbon dioxide will be with us for a long time. We are trying to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide molecule in the atmosphere. So we're right now, you can go to a website and have a look at what it is every single day. I think it's going to be averaging around about 430 parts per million for 1 million years prior to us digging up coal and oil and gas and burning it. We never went above 300 in 1 million years on our planet. So we passed that in, I think, 1911. We actually went up beyond that. Mm-hmm. And it's predicted that we're going to get to 600 or 700 parts per million. So everything that we're talking about trying to get to net zero by 2050 is all about, how, to stop, not to reduce the temperature, but just to stop the increase of carbon dioxide molecules, which is obviously a greenhouse gas that warms us up. We have to stop putting it into the atmosphere, but then we want it to get back down to those levels around about the 300 or 400 levels to have any chance of not completely moving into uncharted territory when it comes to climate and everything else that might happen. And there's some scientists talking about tipping points, and if we go past a certain point, then it could be catastrophic. So who the heck knows? We've never, as long as humanity's been on this planet, carbon dioxide has never been at this level before. So it's we're definitely in uncharted territory. So anything that we do that pumps out more carbon today is not good. We're trying to get carbon out of the atmosphere. So at the minute, because we're not net zero in terms of energy production, we still use coal, we still use oil, we still use gas all over the world. And so these AI usage and data centers is now using more energy. So we're now burning more oil, we're burning more gas, we're burning more coal. That's putting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And then not only that, like I said, the data centers themselves use concrete, use steel. That's 14% of the world's emissions come from those two materials alone. And then not only that, but we might then be chopping down a whole bunch of trees to build the space for them. So now we've taken something that sequesters carbon from the atmosphere. So there could be, a really bad short-term impact. Then once we've built the data centers, we're not going to build them again. Once we've got enough data centers in the world, that's just like a once-off hit, all the steel and the concrete and stuff. So, that's fine. Then hopefully we gradually get the renewable energy to power these, not now. And then hopefully we get more efficiency, more positive decision-making because of AI that will then reduce the emissions. So in the future, you could argue, looks pretty rosy in the future, but it's this short-term pain today. And then those emissions are going to be in the atmosphere for 100 years. So that's that issue that we referred to in the debate. It's the speculative future benefit. I mean, it's the classic. I don't know. I'm a chartered accountant. The amount of hockey sticks in revenue forecasts I've seen of companies where they say, "Oh no, it's going to be great. We're going to launch these new products, and then revenue is just going to go up exponentially. It's going to be fantastic." But then when you actually look at it in 10, 20 years, it's like, that didn't happen. So it's these things that I think people are just a little bit worried about. That if we put all our eggs in this basket and we say, it's fine, let's completely go over all of our emissions targets now, because in the future we'll benefit from it. You chuck the Jevons paradox in, you chuck these, what if they're not that? What if they don't actually come true? Then we might actually be making our situation a lot worse.
If I was doing this on Talkback Radio, I imagine someone would come in and say, you say it's never been above 300, but climate changes all the time and carbon would have changed and there would have been explosions of volcanoes and everything. Do we know that? Or can we, hand on heart, say, well, look, there's no record of it ever being above 300 parts per million? It
depends if you trust science or if you're a conspiracy theorist and you think scientists are the BS. I trust science.
Yeah.
I think scientists, peer-reviewed, getting thousands of people agreeing on something. So yes, since the 1950s, we've been measuring carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere in Hawaii. So that's been happening.
Yep.
Prior to the 50s, we use ice core data. So we drill in, go to the Antarctic or the Arctic, and you drill down, and then you pull out a beautiful cylinder of ice, and then they segment it, and then they do analysis on the water that's in the ice and how much carbon dioxide is in that. And it's been proven to be incredibly accurate.
Yeah.
So that's what we get the historical data on.
Yes.
And because there's been a lot of ice for a lot of time, they can go back 800,000 years and actually show that, yes. And then there's also some satellite data now that we can actually get, which can go back as well. And so, yeah, there's it's pretty accurate, I would imagine. And it's not, it makes sense that our planet has been stable. I mean, yes, it's fluctuated, but it's never gone over 300 parts per million for a millennia, for a million years. And we have the carbon cycle. So it's just a natural system.
Yeah.
Plants die, trees die, they fall onto the ground, they then get covered by soil, they get crushed. So all the carbon that was in a tree, for example, or in a body, has now gone into the ground and been crushed and turned to coal and turned to oil. And it always stayed there until we realized, wow, this is a pretty epic power source, which it was. Wow, if we just burn this, we can actually do all this amazing industry stuff. Our forefathers had no idea that what they were doing was actually going to potentially impact planetary climate change. So they were doing it, but I think we have been complicit in the last 50 years. So our forefathers didn't have a clue. I mean, pollution was bad, but they didn't realize they were actually increasing the climate, changing the climate. But yeah, in the last 50 years, we have definitely been complicit, and there's definitely been a cover-up campaign, and there's definitely lots of disinformation, and it's polarizing, and throwing social media and everything else, and fake news and populism, and it's hard to know where to look. I decided to do a master's degree in climate change just so I could actually study it for 2 years and make my own opinion, have my own opinion on whether I thought it was true or not. And after doing all of that research, I hand on heart believe humanity is causing massive amounts of greenhouse gases to go into the atmosphere, and those greenhouse gases in the atmosphere are warming up our planet. Yep. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize, when I was a kid in England, it snowed every year. We had snow days. We got sent home from school because it snowed too much. The buses couldn't work on the roads. There hasn't been a snow day in England in, I think, a decade. And then earlier last month, they were shutting down schools because it was too hot. So
yes.
It's definitely, in my opinion, at least, it's, I'm probably biased because just the research that I've done, but in my opinion, yeah, this Anthropocene idea is real. Yep. And I came from Bolton, which is where the Industrial Revolution started. So I think, I have to hand on heart say it was my forefathers that were responsible for creating the problem that we're in.
Wow. Mark.
But wouldn't it have been different, Steve, if one of our forefathers said, you know what, there's lots of water on our planet. What if we split the water into hydrogen and oxygen? And what if we use the hydrogen as a power source? I mean, imagine if someone had that idea instead of just digging up coal and going, wow, look at this.
I can't cope in reflecting on that because that is heartbreaking that we didn't go down that pathway.
It's a shame.
Yes. Look, last couple of things I want to pick up on. The innovation accelerator case that would have come up in the debate, that AI will help us make better batteries, better sighting of where wind and solar goes, even, just a bit more efficiency in the way we use these tools. Are they real world right now at scale, or are they perhaps in the near future, we hope?
No, in my opinion, that's 100% with us right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, even just in my work and your work, you could argue that we're seeing that right now.
Yeah.
I use AI every single day. I think I make better decisions. I'm more effective. I'm definitely more efficient. I'm doing the work of probably 10 people with me and my AI tools. I hope what I'm doing is for good. I do a lot of work in climate action. But no, a lot of the companies, the tech companies that I work with, they're also using a lot of AI tools just to be more efficient and more effective. The challenge that we had in the debate was the counter argument to utilizing AI to be more innovative and creative and actually come up with new improved things works in the fossil fuel industry as well. So the fossil fuel companies can also use innovation to make it easier to find oil reserves, make it more efficient to get oil from oil reserves, make new machinery that actually needs oil and gas and stuff. So it works on both sides, which is why I always say if anyone's progressive and they go, oh, I don't know if I really want to use AI, then you're potentially leaving it to the other side of the argument. If they're more willing to use it, then they'll definitely win.
Should there be more attention put to that side of the story of the fossil fuel companies using AI to basically amplify our access and use of fossil fuels?
Well, I think no side of the argument of any industry can control innovation and creativity from use of AI. So to me, it's just human nature. We all want to be more better, quicker, faster than our competition. And if AI means that we can actually do that, sadly, it comes at obviously we were leading debate predominantly from the perspective of climate. But when you also think about, the issues of the impacts of AI, there's impacts in the environment, there's impacts socially, there's impacts for economic development. It's hard to sort of separate out just the climate aspects of it. But yeah, the social disruption of, lots of people losing their jobs. One of the big arguments I know from the fossil fuel companies was, well, why should if we shut down this mine, if we shut down this coal power plant, the communities are they're gonna go bust. Everyone's gonna have to leave. And how heartbreaking is that? AI is essentially doing the same thing, but people aren't giving that as much talk at this point in time as it's starting to happen, I think, with people starting to see, oh, wow, unemployment is going to be increasing because AI is now taking humans' jobs because AI can do it faster, cheaper. And it's, I can hire my AI agent employee and I get no back chat. They do everything I ask them to do. They work 24 hours a day. They cost me, $20 a month?
Yeah.
The human equivalent of that is a lot more expensive. They do give me back chat. They are not as clever as my AI tool. So I don't need as many humans in my team. That's a huge social dilemma. And there's no cost to that. There's no extra tax that I pay because I'm now displacing humans from jobs and laying off people because now I'm using AI tools. We don't charge the robots in manufacturing plants the same minimum wage as we do a human. It's biased definitely to those companies that can have the means to actually automate and use advanced tools and use AI. So there's a huge social dilemma.
There are some people in the environment circles who say what we pay for a widget at a shop in its nice plastic wrapping is actually the hidden cost that the company is not capturing is the cost of disposing of or recycling that material. So you could almost argue that the $20 a month we're paying is a low price, but what are we not paying? What is the cost that's being
100%.
borne by the society, by the economy?
Yeah, it's the same argument. There's no sort of true cost of things that utilize fossil fuels. The damage the damage to our environment, the damage to public health, people dying of cancer living near coal mines because all of the coal dust that they're breathing in. What's the cost of a human life? That company doesn't pay it. So this is just one of the huge social dilemmas that we have with anything that is a pollutant. The fact that you can buy a barrel of oil for $90 US. If you think about the horsepower equivalent of one barrel of oil, it should cost a heck of a lot more than $90. And then you look at the pollution from that barrel of oil, and the oil is then used to make plastics. Plastics now turn into microplastics. They're in the ocean. They're affecting marine life. We're drinking it. We're eating it. It's affecting human life. There's no cost that's now borne by any of these companies. It's like the asbestos example that that I like to give in terms of that analogy, that asbestos was the best thing ever. It was cheap, it was amazing, it was very effective. And then we're like, oh, shoot, it actually causes cancer. And now those companies are now being sued for billions of dollars and have to have these huge funds. You know, it should be the same for some of these other pollutants in the atmosphere, whether it's polluting the atmosphere, which is causing climate change, whether it's just the some of the time delay of the actual sort of acknowledged impact on someone is in the future.
Yeah.
I did a research paper for one of my degrees on the difference between the impacts of COVID and the impacts of climate change on the human psyche. You know, why did we agree to stay at home, wear masks during COVID, but we don't agree to do various things for climate change? It's because it's not immediate. It doesn't affect us today. It's something in the future. It affects other people. There's a lot of factors there that go into it from a social perspective, making decisions.
Nigel Dobson, who's been a long-term co-presenter with me, is a cognitive scientist and a grouchy old bugger who believes in evidence all the time. He often laments the fact that humans, he himself included, are terrible at thinking ahead and thinking of future impact. We have lofty words and ideas, but we're living in the here and now. We're reactive to, oh, I'm hungry now, I'm going to eat a cookie. Or is that changeable? Could AI help us rewire that, what I would consider once a very helpful thing in the state of nature, now not so helpful in civilized society, that little flaw? Does it need to happen at that level for the other things?
Well, I mean, I study behavioral economics. There's lots of interesting debates around, what actually does it take for a human to change their decision? How do we factor in the pros and cons of different things? Like you say, I know I shouldn't eat the cookie. I'm trying to lose weight. My doctor told me I need to look after my heart. But the cookie's there and it tastes nice, and it's only one cookie.
It's only one cookie.
What does it take? Does it take a giant sign next to the cookie that tells me how many calories are in the cookie? And that's what we tried to do to get people to stop smoking cigarettes. We put horrible pictures on the sides of the packets and stuff. But some people still do smoke cigarettes. But maybe it changed for others. But I don't think that's an AI thing. I think that's just more a human behavioral thing that we just got to try and figure out how we actually help people to make the right decision.
On that note, in closing, what would you like to leave in our minds as we are, as we've explained, flawed, wonderful humans trying to, as John Lennon said, make it through the night somehow, whatever gets you through the night? What would you like us to use as a rule of thumb in assessing things we do, or a mindset for contemplating climate? Because that last example we just talked about, you could go mad going down every single aspect of the debate of trying to trap the cost of something fully. There's a pragmatic point we have to get to. What can you leave us with some thoughts around that we could sit with and try on in relation to climate in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I have this conversation with my kids all the time. It's easy to go into sort of overwhelm. It's easy to go, well, there's nothing I can do. What I do is not going to make an impact. In reality, it is. What we can all do as individuals, I mean, if every single human being on our planet decided tomorrow we were not going to eat meat anymore, I'm not advocating that that's what we should do. I'm just saying, if we all just decide, for whatever reason, tomorrow, we're not going to eat meat anymore, that would have an immediate effect. So obviously, if every single human on the planet decided to do something for whatever reason, and I just watched Disclosure Day, the movie, something that was just a perfect example of something that could happen that could actually, in a minute, in a second, change the psyche of all of humanity, something earth-shattering that would allow us to sort of change. Yes, it would. But obviously, it's really hard to get all of humanity to make a decision and do something together. But it really just does start with you. It's like, what one little thing could you do that would make a difference? Like, for example, I try and, when I listen to Spotify, when I watch YouTube, I listen to the same album on Spotify all the time. I download it on Spotify. I don't stream it. Because if I stream it, every single time I listen to that album, a data center somewhere is churning to give me the music and feed that music to my mobile phone, which then I play through my car. If I download it, it only does that once. If I'm watching something on YouTube on my mobile, do I really need it to be in 4K? Could I do with 720 because it's just on my phone and I'm on the bus and I'm watching it? So it's just trying to, I think, just push it down to the very simple decisions that we can all make. Can we delete emails from our email server because they're all living on a data center somewhere? Do we need all those photographs on our phones because they're all living on a data center? And oftentimes they're replicated across hundreds of data centers around the world for backup and stuff. So
really,
oh yeah. I mean, if you look at your carbon footprint, just have a look at your digital footprint of all the emails that you have that you've never deleted are living in a data center. Where else are they? I mean, unless they're stored on a hard drive and you don't have it in the cloud anywhere, which I think would be unusual for most of us. We're all, we're using Google, we're using various things, but yeah, all those emails are there. So our use of data centers is massive prior to AI coming into it.
At the moment, Mark, one of my email accounts has 18,658 emails just sitting in it. The other one has...
They're all in a data center.
The other one has 15,759.
They're living in a data center too. So again, it's like, what little thing could you do? So if you say, okay, I want to use AI, but okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use AI because I like AI and I want to do it and I don't want to be left out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up my old emails. I'm going to delete some of the old photographs that I have. I'm going to download it to an actual hard drive and just store that somewhere, not have it in the cloud, replicated 4 times. I'm going to stream movies to my phone at 720 instead of 4K. I'm going to download things on Spotify. Like, they're all things you can do and you have agency. And I think a lot of it is just making sure we as humans believe that the choices that we can make will actually make a difference. And that it's not just this, oh, well, there's nothing I can do. Let me just move into like apathy or overwhelm.
It's what I used to say with a good friend, Max Martin, who used to be a contributor on this podcast. He's an exercise physiologist. I'd say, look, I know you're telling me what I could be doing at this top level, but what's the least worst thing I could be doing now? And let's start from there.
Yeah.
And I think there's actually something sound about that, because James Clear with Atomic Habits and his work says little changes one by one add up. And I think that's what you've just named it, though, in a very practical way. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And Mark, thank you. Thank you for co-founding Adelaide Climate Action Week and for being part of the Adelaide show. I hope to have my acting gear to be more involved next time one comes around. Is there a plan for another year?
Oh yeah. We set out for a minimum of 3 years. So yeah, same time next year.
All right. The links in the show notes to everything. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And now it's time for the musical pilgrimage.
In the musical pilgrimage, I want to shift gears completely because something has been sitting with me all the week since I understood that the great AI climate debate was underway. In one of my Facebook groups that I'm part of, the Possum Park Protection Platoon, someone shared a photograph of a plaque on the corner of De Quetterfield Terrace and Bartels Road in Rymel Park. It honours 2 brothers, Antonio and Carmine Lapore. They got this plaque made in their honour to note their combined 100 years of tending our city's parks and squares. Antonio since 1960, Carmine since 1979. And back when Antonio started, there were still cows grazing in our parklands. There were Clydesdales that were pulling baker's carts from door to door throughout the suburbs. The plaque ends with a line that's I love. I first heard it mentioned by Harry Moffat. Wonderful. writer in Australia. And it's this line, I'm sure you might have heard it before. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit in. I think that applies to the work that these two gentlemen have done. But not just that. As I was sitting there on Sunday of this week, reflecting on that story and their work, I also thought about people like Mary Lee, the suffragist, Don Dunstan, our former reformer premier. They're the ones we tend to file away in our minds as the special people. They're almost otherworldly because of what they were able to craft and leave as a legacy here in South Australia. The uncomfortable truth, though, is they were just people like us, except they were people who not only gave a damn about South Australia, they actually acted on it, often at real personal cost. So instead of frittering their time away in front of Netflix, which, thank God wasn't around when they were walking the earth, they were doing something. And it also reminded me of some words that we had of Jane Goodall on the Adelaide show many, many years ago. And it was this: when the weight of the world's problems is so heavy that it's overwhelming, so much that it can freeze us from doing anything, she said, if you actually look down at the square metre that you're standing on and start there, that's how you regain a sense of agency, step by step. And so I wrote a song. It's called Higher Legacy. And it is for the Antonios and the Carmines and the Marys and the Dons. But it's also for anyone who's stirring right now as they watch our natural heritage get talked about as vacant space, just ready to put a motorbike race over, or heaven knows what comes next. So I'm going to close today's episode with it, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm playing it with a degree of discomfort because, yes, AI is used to make it something you can listen to, but of course the goal is to pass this on to humans who want to take this song and own it and perform it as their own, which I hope happens. Here's Higher Legacy, Steve Davis and the Virtuosos.
You planted trees for us, even though you will be gone before there's shade. You did what's right for us, even though we take for granted what you've made. Know that one day soon we'll understand your wisdom and we'll try to follow you. When everything seems bleak and every cause feels lost, start with where you're standing. Each small step means a lot. Take a stand against destruction. Take a stand against the greed. Take a stand for something noble, for a higher legacy. You gave a damn for us, even though it could cost you many sleepless nights. You forged a path for us, even though we rarely celebrate our rights. Know that one day soon we'll channel righteous anger and we'll try to follow you. When everything seems bleak and every cause feels lost, start with where you're standing. Each small step means a lot. Take a stand against destruction. Take a stand against the greed. Take a stand for something noble, for a higher legacy. Pluck a weed and plant a flower is the smarter way to live. But when greed holds the power, it's all take and never give. So when our leader holds an axe and proudly boasts about the blows, we must ignore the sycophants and shout, the emperor has no clothes. When everything seems bleak and every cause feels lost, start with where you're standing. Each small step means a lot. Take a stand against destruction. Take a stand against the greed. Take a stand for something noble, for a higher legacy. Take a stand against destruction. Take a stand against the greed. Take a stand for something noble, for a higher legacy.
Steve Davis and the Virtuosos and higher legacy. And, I hope in some small way it's put that spring back in your step if you were getting a bit overwhelmed by the bleakness of what it's like at the moment with people in power who don't seem to be listening with sincerity to righteous concerns that many of us have, instead chasing the neoliberalist goal of just turning anything they see into money, and to heck with the ramifications in the future. Until next time, though, it's good night from me, Steve Davis. Good night, Don.
The Adelaide Show podcast is produced by my dad, Steve Davis. If you want to start a podcast or get some help producing creative content, talk to him. Visit stevedavis.com.au. Thanks, AJ. I'm Caitlin Davis, and I agree with everything my sister said. But there's one more thing to say. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please leave a rating or a review, because that will make my dad really happy. Oh, and one more thing. If you really, really liked it, please help a friend put the Adelaide Show on their phone. Thanks for listening. Buzz, buzz, I want to be.
Adelaide, Adelaide.